God reveals the following to Saint Bridget of Sweden. God's grievance concerning 3 men now going around in the world, and about how from the start God established 3 estates, namely those of the clergy, the defenders, and the laborers, and about the punishment prepared for the thankless, and about the glory given to the thankful. From Book 2 of Prophecies and Revelations of Saint Bridget of Sweden, Chapter 20. The great host of heaven was seen, and God spoke to it, saying, Although you know and see all things in me, however, because it is my wish, I will state my complaint before you concerning 3 things. The first is that those lovely beehives, which were built in heaven from all eternity, and from which those worthless bees went out, are empty. The second is that the bottomless pit, against which neither rocks nor trees are of any help, stands ever open. Souls descend into it like snow falling from the sky down to earth. Just as the sun dissolves snow into water, so too souls are dissolved of every good by that terrible torment, and are renewed unto every punishment. My third complaint is that few people notice the fall of souls, or the empty dwellings from which the bad angels have strayed. I am therefore right to complain. I chose 3 men from the beginning. By this I am figuratively speaking of the 3 estates in the world. First, I chose a cleric to proclaim my will in his words and to demonstrate it in his actions. Second, I chose a defender to defend my friends with his own life, and to be ready for any undertakings for my sake. Third, I chose a laborer to labor with his hands in order to provide bodily food through his work. The first man, that is, the clergy, has now become leprous and mute. Anyone who looks to see a fine and virtuous character in him shrinks back at the sight and shudders to approach him, because of the leprosy of his pride and greed. When he wants to listen to him, the priest is mute about praising me, but a chatterbox in praising himself. So, how is the path to be opened that leads the way to great joy, if the one who should be leading the way is so weak? And if the one who should be proclaiming it is mute, how will that heavenly joy be heard of? The second man, the defender, trembles at heart, and his hands are idle. He trembles at causing scandal in the world and losing his reputation. His hands are idle in that he does not perform any holy works. Instead, everything he does for the world. Who, then, will defend my people if the one who should be their leader is afraid? The third man is like an ass that lowers its head to the ground and stands with its 4 feet joined together. Sure indeed, the people are like an ass that longs for nothing but things of the earth, which neglects the things of heaven, and goes in search of perishable goods. They have 4 feet, since they have little faith, and their hope is idle. Third, they have no good works, and fourth, they are entirely intent upon sinning. This is why their mouth is always open for gluttony and greed. My friends, how can that endless yawning pit be reduced, or the honeycomb be filled by people such as these? God's mother replied, May you be blessed, my son. Your grievance is justified. Your friends and I have only one word of excuse for you to save the human race. It is this: Have mercy, Jesus Christ, Son of the living God. This is my cry and the cry of your friends. The son replied, Your words are sweet to my ears. Their taste delights my mouth. They enter my heart with love. I do have a cleric, a defender, and a peasant. The first pleases me like a bride whom an honest bridegroom yearns and longs for with divine love. His voice will be like the voice of a clamorous speech that echoes in the woods. The second will be ready to give his life for me, and will not fear the reproach of the world. I shall arm him with the weapons of my Holy Spirit. The third will have so firm a faith that he will say, I believe as firmly as if I saw what I believe. I hope for all the things God has promised. He will have the intention of doing good and growing in virtue and avoiding evil. In the first man's mouth I shall put 3 sayings for him to proclaim. His first proclamation will be, let him who has faith put what he believes into practice. The second, let him who has a firm hope be steadfast in every good work. The third, let him who loves perfectly and with charity yearn fervently to see the object of his love. The second man will work like a strong lion, taking careful precautions against treachery and persevering steadfastly. The third man will be as wise as a serpent that stands on its tail and lifts its head to the skies. These 3 will carry out my will. Others will follow them. Although I speak of 3, by them I mean many. Then he spoke to the bride, saying, stand firm. Do not be concerned about the world or about its reproaches, for I, who heard every kind of reproach, am your God and your Lord. The words of the glorious Virgin to her daughter about how Christ was taken down from the cross, and about her own bitterness and sweetness at the passion of her Son, and about how the soul is symbolized by a virgin, and the love of the world and the love of God by 2 youths, and about the qualities the soul should have as a virgin. Chapter 21. Mary spoke. You should reflect on 5 things, my daughter. First, how every limb in my son's body grew stiff and cold at his death, and how the blood that flowed from his wounds as he was suffering dried up and clung to each limb. Second, how his heart was pierced so bitterly and mercilessly that the man speared it until the lance hit a rib, and both parts of the heart were on the lance. Third, reflect on how he was taken down from the cross. The 2 men who took him down from the cross made use of 3 stepladders. One reached to his feet, the second just below his armpits and arms, the third the middle of his body. The first man got up and held him by the middle. The second, getting up on another ladder, first pulled a nail out of one arm, then moved the ladder and pulled the nail from the other hand. The nails extended through the crossbeam. The man who had been holding up the weight of the body then went down as slowly and carefully as he could, while the other man got up on the step-ladder that went to the feet and pulled out the nails from the feet. When he was lowered to the ground, one of them held the body by the head and the other by the feet. I, his mother, held him about the waist. And so the 3 of us carried him to a rock that I had covered with a clean sheet, and in that we wrapped his body. I did not sew the sheet together, because I knew that he would not decay in the grave. After that came Mary Magdalene and the other holy women. Angels too, as many as the atoms of the sun, were there, showing their allegiance to their Creator. None can tell what sorrow I had at the time. I was like a woman giving birth, who shakes in every limb of her body after delivery. Although she can scarcely breathe due to the pain, she still rejoices inwardly as much as she can, because she knows that the child she has given birth to will never return to the same painful ordeal he has just left. In the same way, although no sorrow could compare with my sorrow over the death of my son, Still I rejoiced in my soul, because I knew my son would no longer die, but would live forever. Thus my sorrow was mixed with a measure of joy. I can truly say that there were two hearts in the one grave where my son was buried. Is it not said, "Where your treasure is, there is your heart as well"? Likewise, my heart and mind were constantly going to my son's grave. Then the Mother of God went on to say, "I shall describe this man by way of a metaphor, how he was situated, and in what kind of state, and what his present situation is like. It is as though a virgin was betrothed to a man, and two youths were standing before her. One of them, having been addressed by the virgin, said to her, 'I advise you not to trust the man to whom you are betrothed. He is unbending in his actions, tardy in payment, miserly in giving gifts. Rather, put your trust in me, and in the words I speak to you, and I shall show you another man who is not hard but gentle in every way, who gives you what you want right away, and gives you plenty of pleasant and delightful gifts.' The virgin, hearing this and thinking about it to herself, answered, 'Your words are good to hear. You yourself are gentle and attractive to my eyes. I think I will follow your advice.' When she took off her ring in order to give it to the youth, she saw 3 sayings inscribed on it. The first was, 'When you come to the top of the tree, beware lest you lay hold of a dry branch of the tree to support yourself and fall.' The second saying was, 'Beware lest you take advice from an enemy.' The third saying was, 'Place not your heart between the teeth of a lion.' When the virgin saw these sayings, she pulled her hand back and held on to the ring, thinking to herself, 'These 3 sayings I see may perhaps mean that this man who wants to have me as his bride is not to be trusted. It seems to me that his words are empty. He is full of hatred and will kill me.' While she was thinking this, she looked again and noticed another inscription that also had 3 sayings. The first saying was, 'Give to the one who gives to you.' The second saying was, 'Give blood for blood.' The third saying was, 'Take not from the owner what belongs to him.' When the virgin saw and heard this, she thought again to herself, 'The first 3 sayings inform me how I can escape death, the other 3 how I can obtain life. Therefore, it is right for me to follow the words of life.' Then the virgin prudently summoned to herself the servant of the man to whom she had first been betrothed. When he came, the man who wanted to deceive her withdrew from them. So it is with the soul of that person who was betrothed to God. The 2 youths standing before the soul represent the friendship of God and the friendship of the world. The friends of the world have come closer to him up until now. They spoke to him of worldly riches and glory, and he almost gave the ring of his love to them, and consented to them in every way. But by the aid of my son's grace he saw an inscription, that is, he heard the words of his mercy, and understood 3 things through them. First, that he should beware lest, the higher he rose, and the more he relied on perishable things, the worse would be the fall that threatened him. Second, he understood that there was nothing in the world but sorrow and care. Third, that his reward from the devil would be evil. Then he saw another inscription. He heard its consoling messages. The first message was that he should give his possessions to God, from whom he had received them all. The second was that he should render the service of his own body to the man who had shed his blood for him. The third was that he should not alienate his soul from God, who had created and redeemed it. Now that he has heard and carefully considered these things, God's servants approach him, and he is pleased with them, and the servants of the world draw away from him. His soul is now like a virgin who has risen fresh from the arms of her bridegroom, and who ought to have three things. First, she should have fine clothes, so as not to be laughed at by the royal maidservants, should some defect be noticed in her clothes. Second, she should comply with the will of her bridegroom, so as not to cause him any dishonor on her account, should anything dishonorable be discovered in her actions. Third, she should be completely clean, lest the bridegroom discover in her any stain, because of which he might scorn or repudiate her. Let her also have people to guide her to the bridegroom's suite, so as not to lose her way about the precincts or in the elaborate entrance. A guide should have two characteristics. First, the person following him should be able to see him. Second, one should be able to hear his directions and where he steps. A person following another who leads the way should have three characteristics. First, he should not be slow and sluggish in following. Second, he should not hide himself from the person leading the way. Third, he should pay close attention and watch the footsteps of his guide and follow him eagerly. Thus, in order that his soul may reach the suite of the bridegroom, it is necessary that it be guided by the kind of guide who can successfully lead it to God, his bridegroom.
Welcome to the Virgo Potens YouTube channel. If you enjoy this video, give it a like. I also invite you to subscribe to this channel so that you won't miss new content. Please prayerfully consider supporting my work by becoming a patron of Virgo Potens on Patreon and/or by buying one of my books. My ebooks are available on Amazon as well as on the Apple Bookstore. For those who prefer a physical copy rather than an ebook, my book, Spiritual Warfare, Know Thy Enemy, is also available as a paperback on Amazon. If you are interested in making a one-time contribution, I suggest that you do so by simply buying one of my books. I am thankful for your support. Links to Patreon and to my books will be posted in the comments section of this video. The continuation of this work isn't possible without you. Lastly, and most importantly, please pray for me. May the Virgin Most Powerful guide and protect you.